Peace, everyone. Welcome to this live. This is Indigo Blackbird. This is going to be part 2 of my language and labor video, Why It Matters. Right now, I'm recording this video for YouTube, so if you're watching this later, that means you're watching the second half of the video. If you haven't seen that, then watch it on my YouTube channel. I'm going to post that tonight, so you'll be able to look up that. But in that last video, basically to go over, I was talking about why language and labor matters. Hi, Bianca. Nice to see you. So I'm speaking about why language and labor matters and knowing the difference of how you speak to yourself, or the difference that can happen when you know what you're saying to yourself, what's being said to you in childbirth, labor, and pregnancy, who's saying it, what feedback you're getting from the universe, what opinions and biases people have, and the difference of having someone who can support you, and having someone who can translate and filter information from the medical field or about birth in general or personal experiences, and how that can help you to have a totally, completely different experience with birth versus if you just kind of sit in your own thoughts. So the part that I got to now was, and I have notes in front of me also, was like, how does your perspective impact your outcome? Why does what is said around events or situations have the capability of influencing your decision making and thus your behavior? So like from a psychology level, all right, it was acting kind of crazy. So from a psychology level, everything has the ability to basically add up. Right, all of your experiences are a collection of other experiences, thought forms, impressions, memories, ideas, beliefs, etc. And when you have your own like data, that's stored, I believe, in your amygdala, right? All of that is just for you. You have a personal file and folder for each event, and it's stored, and that is ready to be accessed to tell you what you need to do in any given situation. So you can go back and retrieve that from your memory and use that. But everybody has this. So if someone else has this experience and it contrasts to yours because they had a traumatic experience and they're now informing you from that lens, that can impact your decision making because you're now getting information about an event that you haven't experienced yet from someone who experienced it, and you may perceive yourself in a certain way. You can either think that you don't have enough experience and so you should listen to this person. You could think, this doesn't really feel right for me, so I'm not going to take that, and use that. Or I don't really resonate with your advice, that's your own thing. That's your own projection, right? There are different ways to interpret it, and there's so many more than what I just mentioned to you here. But these things all have the capability of influencing you, especially if you're someone who doesn't know any better, who's never experienced it, who is not in the birth world, who's only ever seen or known birth from TV, because then you've had certain expectations. You have certain ideas about what birth is like, and then you're going to go into your experience in your pregnancy with those ideas and beliefs, and if they don't match that in your experience or reality, you may feel lost or confused or unprepared for the events that may take place because you didn't have that information. So what are some solutions? What are some ways to prepare yourself or to understand what your language is relating to childbirth and pregnancy? The solution could be looking up the terms and the definitions, reapproaching them, readapting them, or reinterpreting them to evoke positive associations when done repetitively. So what does that mean? Right? So we spoke about language a bit, but language ascribes meaning, which defines experience. So some of the things I learned in anthropology was literally we determine what things mean to us and how we decide to act on them based on what it is we define them as, right? And words have power. You've heard probably words are spells, right? Well, when we have certain words that create these sentences, these beliefs, these structures and these constructs and ideas, the things that we say, think, and believe habitually, whether consciously or not, or subconsciously, will dictate our reality unless we override those narratives and rewrite or reprogram them. Right?
Hi, Mommy.
Hi. If we believe that birth is painful, pain is the word, right? Well, then the word pain is not going to be the same for each person, right? This is painful, right? That can look like blood, that can look like gore, that can look like grief, that can look like sadness, that can look like loneliness to a different person, right? It's a very general word that is used to describe a plethora of things. So how someone's gonna interpret that is like looking at the 6 and 9 from different angles, right? You can choose what that's gonna mean for you. You can say, you know what? Maybe this is intense for me. Maybe this is uncomfortable for me. Maybe this feels extremely... It can feel painful, I guess, if you want to stick with that word. But maybe this feels extremely hot, right? You can go into sensation. You know, this feels like I'm stretching. This feels like I'm ripping, right? There's so many other words we can use to replace pain. But this gives you a better idea of what you are experiencing versus just the general idea of, well, okay, there's things we can do to manage pain, right? Because if we don't know exactly what you're experiencing, we may not be able to tailor your care in the way that you really could benefit from the most. Because if you're experiencing loneliness, if you feel like, I feel so abandoned in this moment, I just don't feel like myself right now, I don't feel connected to this experience at all, you may need a different approach. Maybe you need someone to hold you while you push. Maybe you need to take a break really quickly and to find a way to connect with yourself, right? To not be forced to push or to get things over with, because each stage of that process is intentional. We each have certain milestones to meet and checkpoints to reach during birth, and it's not something that's intended to be rushed, right? Anything outside of that, normally, whether some kind of rushing is like a survival mechanism or something instinctual that's telling you birth is not safe. And so many people are having birth in experiences or in situations or spaces where it's treated as if it's not safe. So if you don't feel like you're in a safe space to process emotions that you don't even feel safe about or comfortable with in the first place, you're going to label something as pain and just do your best to avoid it, right? So we want to gently peel back these layers by discovering what we believe, what we think, how we think, what things are we saying to ourselves aloud or in our head, what things have been said to us, and then to start to break it down so we can understand who we are. And then we can start to shift these things to match what we want to happen. So also, you want to know who is telling your birth story. Is it a midwife telling you? Is it an OBGYN? Is it a doula? Your parents or your neighbors? Or is it you? Who are you listening to? Who's the voice in your head? And if you haven't ever thought to address that, a great time to do that is before you have a child, because you were going to come out the other end of that in a different form. You may not experience things the same way. And oftentimes you start to reflect back on your own life once your child is born, and see things differently or see things clearly or for what they are. If you allow like that medicine of giving birth to take place, because it is something that we've all experienced from one end, but we get to go back through that portal and to let someone else out. It's really pretty dope. But what are the steps? First, work on your mindset, right? Think, what do you want to happen? And you can literally write this down. What do you want to happen? What would be your ideal birth, right? If there was no doubt, there were no unforeseen circumstances or what ifs or other possibilities, what would be your ideal birth? Go crazy with it. Like, just write it all out and really feel that. Like, what do I want more than anything for this experience, right? Write down why. Why does that mean so much to you? Why do you want to experience that? What will you gain from having that experience? Then, write down what will happen, what will be the result or the perceived feeling of loss that you may have if you don't have that experience, if that doesn't happen. And then after that, write, what would it be like when you've achieved your goal? Like, when you have accomplished that, how will you feel, right? And doing it in that order is really powerful too. Because once you can determine the things you're most afraid of, right? What you don't want to happen, what's holding you back now, why are things not great enough now, why you need or want things to be better, and can really identify and feel that, you're more likely and willing to make those shifts and to make that happen and to take the steps and the actions to create that desire. The next, right, speaking of action, you're going to make small changes each day to achieve your goal. The first thing we did, right, was to start by redefining what things mean to you in great detail. So again, writing helps. Have a journal. I had a pregnancy journal. It was amazing. And I didn't really even write in it that much because at some points I was just really exhausted. And a lot of it, for me, I was getting a lot of downloads. So I felt like I needed to kind of keep them to myself. I didn't really want them documented in the same way. But some people may feel differently. Sometimes just writing out, I feel this alarm, y'all. I want to experience this, this didn't happen, it should have, or I feel amazing and baby's first kicks today, and et cetera, right? So writing down, having like your goals in a place where you can go back and look at it and see the growth that's taking place, because you're growing from conception and you're going to keep on growing even past that. But having that to reflect on, you'll start to understand and to see all these changes taking place, and you'll really, the moment that you've given birth, you'll be able to like clearly see the transformation like for what it is and be like, wow, this was the outcome we were wanting or were striving for. Did it happen? What did I do that worked? What didn't work? Like, how can I, adapt to this now? How can I adjust? Like, how can I make the best out of this situation or to sustain that? And then having this practice applies to every part of your life. This is not just about birth. This is about whatever you want to do. This is about any goal you want to set, any career path you want to take, any person you want to meet or attract into your life or whatever. Like, all of these things of asking those questions and determining that outcome is going to help you to receive that outcome. The next thing you're going to do is to have examples of what words you're going to do. So the next thing you're going to do is create words, right, that contrast each other. One of them is going to be the outcome that you desire, and the other one is going to be something that creates a restrictive response in you. So for example, the word contraction, right? You're going to identify what things that brings up for you, whether that's a sensation in your body, whether that is an unpleasant vision of a woman in pain or crunching up or trying to dissociate from the moment, whether you think of weightlifting or you think of something getting smaller, right? Versus, say, a word like surge, right? Do you think of an ebb and flow, a pull and push, right? You can do the same thing with expected birth date versus an estimated due date, or pushing versus flowing. The word labor itself, a lot of people don't like that word because it makes them think of work, right? And I mean, it is, you're putting in effort, like that's what we mean by work, but you can also use the word rebirth or transformation instead of labor. So, or dilation, or you can call it opening, or effacement can be dissolving, right? So try to replace some of these words, create some synonyms, create some substitutions, and see how that affects your mind, right? Like what I said about pain. If you say intense versus pain, you're probably going to have a different experience. Lifting a heavy box of stuff can be kind of intense, right? If you don't have a strong enough back. But the word pain can make you like want to flee away in terror and not even be involved at all, right? So those things can help you. Put that in your journal, write it out, and just see, okay, pregnancy. Write down all the things that come to mind about pregnancy. And, sorry, Fiend. And go from there. You can also think about, so I'm just going over the notes again because I kind of just mentioned that naturally. Okay, so things that you can do after this video also. In addition to starting that journal or that writing practice or reflective practice, think again of those experiences. So pregnancy, of the transition during pregnancy, of childbirth, and of postpartum. What is the language you have? who told you this, or where did you get this language from? If you can't remember, it doesn't really matter. Just understand what the language is. What do you want to be telling yourself? What do you want to experience? What do you want to understand and have communicated to you? How can that standard be met? Whether that's having support, whether that means self-study, whether that means removing yourself from certain spaces or from certain people, and then start to redefine what these things mean for you. Whether that's giving birth in a hospital can be a great experience if I have support and if I know what things to avoid and what things I can say no to, right? Or being pregnant can be a pleasurable experience when I do it the way that I want to versus the expectations of me, or anything that's the inverse of that. You can play around with this as much as you want, but the point of this is to identify the language that's used in birth, understand why it matters, and use it to your advantage so you can have the outcome that you desire. Thanks for watching, y'all. Have a great night.